Teresa Blaes is an author, coach, speaker, and entrepreneur who helps people find God in their story and share that story with the world. She is a wife of 20 years and a mother to an 18-year-old special needs daughter. Teresa has learned that no matter what role she's engaging in, whether speaking, writing, an interview, or being a wife and mother, she has to let God lead her as she is doing His work. And as she speaks to us, providing several testimonies, she tells us how to do just the same. Welcome, Teresa Blaes. Welcome to She Leads Boldly, the podcast for faith-driven women navigating high-stakes leadership without compromising what matters most. I am Sharika Sanders, your host, mentor, and kingdom business leader. Here, we embrace bold leadership rooted in purpose, not pressure. This space is for the woman who refuses to choose between faith and ambition, family and fulfillment, impact and rest. Each week, you'll hear powerful conversations, practical strategies, and spirit-led wisdom to help you advocate for yourself, lead with integrity, and rise without burnout. If you're ready to lead boldly, live faithfully, and never settle for less than what God has promised, you're in the right place. Get ready for an amazing conversation today, something that we all need to hear and we all need to be reminded of. But first, just thank you, Teresa, for your time, for your yes, and for being here in your obedience and being here to share with us today.
Well, it's an honor to be here. I just love doing what God asked me to do. So no problem. And thank you.
That's enough. I really want to touch on something that you referenced, which I think sometimes we find really hard to do. And that is finding God in our story, because sometimes we get so caught up on what we see and the things around us, or He blesses us in amazing ways and we forget to say thank you, and we go and enjoy all the blessings and never go back to the blessor. And so I would just love to hear more about how you find God in your story and help us to make sure we do the same, honestly.
Actually, I want to address both of those scenarios because, they're both equally important. When you talk about God blessing us, there's a Bible story that actually comes to mind that I think really speaks to this. And if you remember, back in biblical times, Jesus, He would do some healing. And there was an incident where there were like 10 guys that were lepers. And back in those days, leprosy was pretty much, you were a pariah. You had that, you were just exiled from the community. Well, there was a group of 10 lepers that came to Him asking for healing. And they all went away to do their thing. And only one came back to say thank you. And He's like, wait a minute, didn't I just heal 10 of you guys?
Right. Where are the other 9?
Yeah, exactly. Where are the other 9? And so I don't want to be one of the other 9.
That's right.
I really don't. Like I've seen God move in incredible ways. Okay? But maybe you're not in that situation where you don't feel like you're being blessed. Maybe you feel like you're actually being cursed because your life has been a wreck. I can honestly say I've been there. You see, I know what it's like to grow up in a very broken home. I know what it's like to grow up with a mom who had a propensity for finding abusive men. I know what it's like to grow up around domestic violence. I know what it's like to grow up being a witness to a murder at the age of 6 years old.
Oh, wow.
Okay? I know what it's like also to grow up in and out of hospitals and struggling sometimes because your life was at risk every time you would go under the knife because you would stop breathing under anesthesia. That was my story. And there's more to that. So, and I say that to say this. Sometimes the question becomes, God, where are you? And His answer is right there holding you through it.
Yes.
And I think if we can find God in our story, whatever that story happens to be. Whether you're on the side of, thank God for your blessings, or, oh, God, my story is dark and brutal and bloody and it sucks. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it is those things. And it's okay to say that. I think we sometimes in the church literally go to church and it's like we put this mask on,
Yes.
right? We put a mask on. Hey, how you doing? I'm blessed. I'm good. Meanwhile, you're dying inside.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, you feel like you're a disaster area surrounded by a dumpster fire.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to be your life. But no one needs to know that, because if they knew that, if they knew I didn't have it all together, when
This,
really what
this,
God wants is our story.
yeah. The scripture that comes to mind, 1 Peter 4:19. Let them that suffer according to the will of God commit to the keeping of their soul to him in times of commit to the keeping of their souls to him in well doing as unto a faithful creator. And the reason that's coming to mind is for those who, now there are times that we go through things because of our own actions. You do a thing and you have to suffer the consequence, or, pay the price, so to speak, for that thing that you've done.
Right.
Even
Yep.
in those situations, we can still see God's mercy. The punishment may not be as bad as it could be. But then there are also those times where we may be doing all that he's called us to do. We may be being obedient. We may be walking according to his will, and we still have the things to happen. We still have our bit of suffering. And in those times, just like you said, we may have the question, Lord, where are you? And that's absolutely right. He's saying, I'm right here. And one of the things, or one of the problems we often face, is we expect him to show up a certain way. And so even though he shows up, because it's not the way that we expect, we say, well, where are you? You're not showing up for me. How could you leave me? And he promises to never leave us or forsake us. But we
Right.
forget that because we start trying to look at God in our minds, through our eyes, and in our versus through his power, and versus through, using his heart and his will and all of those things. So that's what you're saying. That's what it reminded me of for those people.
Well, and if you think about it, if you think about Job, I especially want to focus on the first chapter of Job, right? The enemy comes to God's throne, and he's doing his thing, and God's like, where you been?
Right.
And he's like, I've been wandering to and fro, doing my thing. It's like, have you seen my servant? He's only serving you because you ain't let me lay a hand on him. Let me do this and that and the other.
Right.
All right, but don't kill him. Now, here's a question. In any of that chapter, did Job have a clue that conversation was going on?
Not at all.
Did Job have an inside track? Okay, God's doing this because he's showing the devil.
Nothing.
No. All he knew is he was getting gut punched.
Right.
Right and left and
Repeatedly.
center. Yeah. That's all he saw. He was getting gut punched, and he was blaming God. Okay? But he still refused to curse him. I mean, even though his wife even said, "Hey, curse God and die. This ain't working."
Yeah.
Okay? But seriously, God God had to kind of, only deal with Job because he was going a little too far. But he never criticized him for asking questions. And then you've got, on the other side of that, you've got Paul and Silas. They're sitting in jail. They have been beat. They're in the stocks. And what are they doing at midnight?
Crazy.
And that's got to hurt, right?
Absolutely.
It probably hurts them to start singing physically. Because they got all those wounds, right? Okay? But they're sitting there praising. In midnight, in the darkest hour, they're praising God. So my thing about that is this. You don't know. Maybe you're going through something because God's asking the enemy, have you seen my servant?
Yeah.
Have you seen my servant?
And one of the things we fail to forget, and that is how he was blessed. Job was blessed with twice as much after. Because again, let them that suffer according to the will of God. So it means that no matter what is going on around you, no matter what it looks like, God is still there. He has never left you. And your job is just to continue to be obedient to him and walking according to his purpose. You don't have to understand the why.
Well, I would push back on that a little bit, because in Isaiah 1:6 it says, "Come, let us reason together. Though your sons be as scarlet, I will make them white as snow." He is not afraid of the why.
That is true. And I'm not saying we can't ask, but we don't have to know, because in Job's situation, he didn't know. And that's for the person who, I don't understand why. I don't understand. Why is this happening? Why? And there are oftentimes we get the why, we get the understanding after we've gone to the other side. And then we say, oh, I understand now why, if I had gotten it at this point, I would have abused it. I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to steward it. But oftentimes in the midst, we don't understand. And I think even, myself, there have been times where I'm like, I'm not really understanding the point. And I think we would do a better justice to ourselves to shift our mindset to say, whatever the lesson is that I'm to learn, let me at least get that. Or at least I know for me, even if I don't understand it in this moment, because typically you don't in that moment, even if I don't understand it in this moment, can I let me at least, I pray I at least learn whatever the lesson is I'm supposed to learn out of this, or that I'm able to stay obedient, or that I'm able to maintain courage, if that's whatever it is that's needed for that time to understand that. And
I would agree with that. I remember, when I was younger, my old youth pastor always used to say, sometimes, we're going around the mountain. God's like, "Are you done yet?" "Well, no, I don't." Take another lap. The Israelites did 40 years in the wilderness.
Unnecessarily.
And when they didn't need to, but they did. Because they didn't trust him. And I get it. Sometimes it's really hard to trust him, but but he's got a plan. We don't understand it, but he's got a plan. And the other factor here too is sometimes this is God allowing it. Sometimes it's just a matter of us. We are not walking in kingdom authority, because we don't understand our authority when the enemy's coming after us.
Yes.
Okay? And then we walk out on the battlefield butt naked, with arrows sticking out our back, and we wonder why our life is all jacked up. And we aren't putting on the armor.
Now that's a big one. That's a big one.
Okay. Like seriously, you do realize you're in a war, right?
We are. You
do realize we're in a war. So if we're in a war, there's no white flags. There's no surrender. You're either on one side or the other. Either way, you're in a war.
Yes.
And I've come to the place where I'm just like, I'm not going to be a casualty.
Yeah. Yeah. We do. That's a great point, because when we are in the midst, we do often forget the power that we have. Power of life and death is in the tongue. We forget the power that we have. And a lot of times we're asking God to deliver us from something He's already given us the power to deliver ourselves. We just need to speak it. We just need to believe it. We just need to cast it out. But we're so busy either complaining and this isn't judgment, because I may not be there at this moment, but I've been there before. And I'm sure there'll be times in the future where I may, stumble a bit and be in that same place. But I'm thankful enough that I have a relationship where I don't stay in that place and can come out. And I think that's where the relationship does come in, because it doesn't mean that you won't have those moments where you may not cry, you may not get upset, you may not be, you're not going to be happy-go-lucky every day, all day, but you will always remember your source, your comforter, your protector, your provider, and that brings you back to that point. And I even want to mention, you said something about when Paul and Silas in their praise at midnight. And you made a great point in that one too, because often in our midst, I can say I've experienced it, and definitely, something you hear often, no matter, especially in those dark times, that's when you really need to praise. And that's when
Amen.
it's so hard. It is so hard.
One of the biggest songs that really has affected Mike and my husband and myself is "Praise You in the Storm" by Casting Crowns. I cannot tell you how many times I've turned to that song when going through something, or "Voice of Truth." Now, don't get me wrong. I like praise and worship. I really do. I like Casting Crowns, but then again, I'm interested in Christian hip hop and also Christian rock. So there are also times where I go to those guys too, because I'm just like, I want to hurt something because I've about had enough of things, and and so
Yes.
So it's been, you mentioned something, God is our protector. I can honestly say He is. I have countless stories where God has protected us, or protected me. Like I'll share one with you if you want.
Please.
Well, when I was a kid, my mom and I, we lived out in the woods, had an ugly pink Pepto-Bismol pink house. Ugliest house I ever saw, too. Okay? This thing was bad. And I don't know why my mom never painted it. I think it's because we were renting. So we were coming home one night, and my dog, BJ, was like on the porch, and he was going berserk. He was spinning in circles and completely freaked out. And I'm looking down at him, what is your problem? We hear a scream from behind us. We turn around, and there is a mountain lion 10 feet away from us, crouched and ready to charge.
Oh, my goodness.
My mom gets the door open, throws the dog inside, gets me inside, and gets the door shut. That cat hit the door from top to bottom, cracking it. It was a solid oak door. What we found out is she had cubs in our barn.
Oh.
Why she never hurt my mom when she was milking our goat, or much less killed the goat, I don't know.
Oh, wow.
But that's just one story, and I have many others like it of God's hand of protection. Now, did I know it was God at the time?
Right,
nope.
right.
Didn't know him, didn't much care for him. Okay? But I'm telling you, if God has his hand on you, he is a protector. That's how he works.
Yes. Yeah, he does. And again, not in ways that we often expect or imagine.
Now, don't get me wrong. Did I want to pet some mountain lion cubs? Oh, yes, I did. I am a cat person. I can't help it. And I happen to have a heart for the big kitties. However, considering Mama tried to eat me, no.
Right. We have to let those go. We have to let those slide. Yeah, that's an amazing story. And just even more, because there are a lot of ways that it happens when we don't think about it. Like when we're texting and we look up at the last minute, or when, someone who may be driving and falling asleep, and, something makes you jump or catches your attention again at that last minute, or that time where, and not to even put everything, where something may have happened at a place you were heading, and for whatever reason you were later than normal that day, or you changed your mind and took another route and there was a big accident. Like, just so many different things.
We just don't know. Yeah.
No, exactly.
I mean,
we don't often see the way that a lot of the ways we're protected.
Well, like, for example, I use and it's funny you mentioned that, because I'm releasing a book called "Protected: A Story of Survival, Faith, and Redemption." And in that book, one of the stories that I share is when we were getting on one of those roller coaster rides. It was like a big old loop that went upside down. Well, we get on. We're strapping in to have a really fun time, right? Except when we were upside down, the bar that holds us in fell off, and I saw it fall to the ground.
Oh, no.
And my mom reached, slammed her elbow into my chest, and grabbed onto the side bar and said and screamed, "I've got you." And I'm screaming for terror for my life, going, I don't want to die. I really don't want to die. I don't want to die.
Oh my
And
goodness.
the only way I can think that my mom was able to hold on was God.
Absolutely.
Okay, this is just it comes down to, how do you know
Hmm.
God is real? Because I've seen him show up time and time and time and time and time again.
Yes.
I've had over 8 heart attacks as a baby.
Oh my gosh.
8 of them. Many of them my mom had to do CPR.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. I literally should not be here,
But God,
but God,
that's
but God.
amazing. Yeah, to be a living testimony. To
And
be
don't
a
get me
living
wrong, I've had
testimony.
those moments where I've been royally ticked off at him. At one point, when I lost my mom and my eyesight in the same week,
Oh my
I
goodness.
literally told him I was done. I was fed up, and I walked away for 5 years. Yeah, I did that. Why? Because I was so fed up, and I didn't have answers, and I just, I was angry,
Yeah.
and that led to some other stuff, and so on and so forth. But I understand what we're dealing with. I understand when you talk about finding God in your story, sometimes it doesn't come with a simple answer.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. You made me think about well, my daughter, she's 17 now. When she was, I want to say she was 2, um, and the daycare called and said that she had choked. They had gone outside and she brought a rock back in and choked. They were like, but it wasn't anything like we saw her put it in her mouth. She's fine. Everything's okay. But we just want to let you know. And I'm like, do I need to come get her or something? They're like, no, no, no. Well, I learned later the real story. And the real story was she had brought the rock back in and they were laying down for nap time. And I tell you, God is in this story because she had the rock in her mouth and was laying on the little pad they lay on, choking.
Oh
And the
God.
only reason they knew it is because the teacher in her class went over to tie her shoe. Now, who ties someone's shoe while they're sleeping? The teacher went over to tie her shoe while she was supposedly sleeping and saw that she was choking on this rock.
Oh wow.
And
Oh wow.
just in the it happened to be, but it wasn't even the teacher that saved her. It was someone else in the class, and she was like, they're like, she's throwing up, her eyes are rolling in the back of her head, but the rock wouldn't come out. And the daycare never called 911, and they're asking, call 911, call, and they're like, no, she'll be fine, it'll be okay, it'll be okay. And she's like, and my daughter has always been really tall, so it was a lot for that particular one, but she was really short to hold her like that. And she said, but I just kept doing it. I just kept going. She was like, I was so tired, but I just couldn't give up. I couldn't give up. That was God giving her the strength
Mm,
to continue to do that for my child, to continue to protect her when they wouldn't call, 911, for the
God.
teacher to go over to tie her shoe when, during nap time, just to see that she was laying there choking. Like it was just in all of these different pieces of that, the way that he showed up. And it was
Mm,
just something like, I can't say he's not real. I can't
amen.
say.
No, I've seen way too much to realize that he is absolutely real.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen his hand time and again.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like,
Yeah.
I just have seen way too much. And the fact is, God, like, he has a plan.
Mm-hmm.
He really does. And sometimes that plan looks pretty ugly from where we sit.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
do I understand why I had to go through half the stuff I went through? No.
Mm-mm.
Do I understand why I had to go through so many plastic surgeries? No. I went through over 200 eye operations.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Plus brain surgery, heart surgery, cleft palate surgery,
Oh my God.
you know, and each time I was putting my life in my hands because I would stop breathing under anesthesia.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, there's a lot that goes into that. Do I understand why I had to have all the surgeries? Not completely. Do I understand why I had to witness the murder of my sister by my mom's boyfriend? Nope.
My God.
No, I don't. I do know that she's in heaven, and I know I'll see her again, and I have forgiven the man who did it. But does that make it go away? No,
Yeah.
no, it doesn't. So
That's
sometimes it's ugly, it's brutal, it's bloody, it's messy, and sometimes you don't have an answer, and it's okay
mm-hmm.
to not have an answer. It's okay to come to God going, "Hey, I don't get this."
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. He's got big shoulders and he can handle it.
Yes. Yes, he can. And one of the things, um, one of the reasons I can definitely say is because many of the things that we go through are not even for us. It's for us to help someone else.
Mm-hmm. I believe that.
And even speaking with you now and someone who may be listening and feeling like this is the worst that, or going through something similar and not really sure that they could get to the other side, but to be able to know, well, someone else did, and God was still there, and He is still seeing, He is still protecting
Amen.
me. And while we typically, 9 times out of 10, we will not know the plan. And I honestly, even though we want to know the why, we want to know how to, and we want to know all these different things. I am glad that I don't, because I also know that if many of us knew what it would take for us to get where He called us to be and what that journey would look like, we wouldn't take it.
Amen. I absolutely agree with that. I absolutely, there are certain situations where I go, had I known this was going to be this
Mm-hmm.
crazy to begin with, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. Like, it's like, when I came back to God after 5 years, He was like, I want you to write a book.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew what He meant. He wanted me to write about my early childhood. And I'm like, there's too many skeletons back there. We ain't going there. We are not going there.
Mm-hmm.
And He's like, all right, if you're not ready to write a book, would you at least start a podcast?
Mm.
I was like, yeah, okay. So I'm kind of chewing on this idea and I'm doing this podcast. And I thought, what about the unresolved life? People, well, no, I didn't think, but like it was recommended to me by a friend who has since gone on to be with the Lord. But the idea was, I have these questions that I don't want churchianity answers to. I want
Yeah.
real answers.
Yeah.
And if I've got them, so do other people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Exactly.
And so that's how that podcast started. And, I knew I was on the right track about the second weekend, because when I first launched it, I was scared. I'm like, is this even going to work? Is this even a good idea? I don't know. And then I'm looking around and I'm reading scripture and I see Psalms 91. Do not be afraid of the terror that the arrow that greets you at day, or the terror that finds you by night, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, all right, Lord, I get the point. So I go ahead. All right, we're gonna publish anyway. So I published this episode, and I was doing this interview with this guy who lost his mom to suicide.
Mm.
And a week later, I get an email. And it's from this lady who's like, I've gone through this, and this. And she had a pretty horrific past.
Mm.
And she said, I've been feeling this way and this way and this way. But because of your podcast, someone shared it with me. And because of your podcast, I'm not going to kill myself.
Wow.
Huh? Okay. Yeah, that's why we're doing the podcast. Okay.
The blessing and the pressure.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay then. No pressure at all here. Yeah. And God has just been taking me down this road and down this road and down this road, and now He's opening up doors I never would have even imagined.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there were some moments I'm going, wait, you want me to do what? I'm checking that ID because I'm not sure I heard you right. And, that just happened to me this year. God's like, I want you to record a music album.
Oh,
Huh?
goodness.
Huh? You want me to do what? How am I supposed to do that? And he's opening up doors and doors and doors. And I'm just telling you, like the stuff that God is doing, the stuff that God will do, sometimes it don't make a lick of sense. It really don't. But it's when you do it and then you see how he's going to use it. He connects all these little pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like, how does running a podcast production company, a book publishing company, publishing your own stuff, plus doing a music album, plus running a ministry, how does that all connect together? Plus doing life. I mean, how does that all fit together? It does.
With God.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's how. Well, I'm so thankful and grateful for your obedience, and I'm sure so many others are. And the reminder to always find God in our story. Because we can so easily write him out, either giving ourselves the credit, or thinking because of the way something looks, he must not be in the midst of it. But I love the reminder, and even, the testimonies and the obedience that you shared of how, one, when we're obedient, how he can bless us. And no matter what we go through, knowing that he is in control and he has us in his hand.
He really does. I'll leave you with one last thing.
Please. Yes.
What that looks like for me, earlier when I was in my 20s, there was a night where I was staying with a friend as a roommate, and I ended up having to make the decision to get out of my home because, God wanted to use me, but my parents were not believers, and it was very contentious at times. And so I remember one night really wrestling with moving out, and I remember so distinctly hearing God's voice. You can go back to Arizona and be put on the shelf, or you can stay here and do what I've called you to do. And I remember laying there and feeling just the weight of that moment and going, God, I can't not obey you. And so my mom calls me, and I hadn't even told her a single thing, but she was like, you're moving, aren't you? And I was like, okay, now the stuff is hitting the fan. Okay. Yes, I am. And did everything go ballistic? But I had to do what I had to do. And sometimes following God looks like standing up to those that are the most important to you. Sometimes following God looks like doing the most crazy thing you can imagine. But you have to do it.
Thank you for that. And for that reminder for some and a confirmation for others who may be struggling or questioning, is this God? Did God tell me to do this thing? Am I crazy? Why would I do, all of these different things that we go through when he's calling us to be obedient. But he will never call us to sin. And so if sin is anywhere in that, we know it's not him. It'll always tie back to his word in some form or fashion. And so I thank you. I love how freely you share your story. And I know that someone was blessed because of it. I know that I've been blessed because of it. And so I appreciate that. And again, just thank you for your yes and your obedience. And for those listening, Teresa's contact information is included. So you can connect, reach out, all the things. But as we love to say, it's not goodbye, but until next time. Thank you so much, Teresa.
Thank you.
Hey, friend, if this episode stirred something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Make sure you subscribe to She Leads Boldly so you never miss an episode. And let's stay connected. Join our growing community of faith-driven powerhouse women where you'll find real talk, encouragement, and tools to fuel your journey. Oh, and I've created something special just for the bold, faith-driven women like you. An ebook, When You Know His Name. Discover identity, intimacy, and the power of prayer through the names of God. This ebook is designed to equip and encourage you to lead with clarity, courage, and conviction in every space God assigns you to. Available now on Amazon. And if you're ready for deeper clarity, I would love to personally walk with you. I offer a one-on-one session called Your Path to Purpose and Power, and it's to help you break through the overwhelm and realign with what God is actually calling you to in this season. Whether it's burnout, boundaries, or fresh vision, you don't have to figure it out alone. All links are in the show notes. Oh, and one last thing. I would love to hear from you. What questions are you carrying this season? What topics would serve your walk, your work, your womanhood right now? Send me a message or an email because this podcast is for you, and I want every episode to speak directly to where you are. Remember, you don't have to choose between your faith, your family, and the calling on your life. God's grace makes room for it all. So until next time, stay anchored in purpose, covered in grace, and always ready to rise. Talk soon, friend.